Ethan Cole had always believed in keeping things steady and maintaining order. His home with its private pool was a testament to this philosophy, a place of peace and solitude that his family had cared for and nurtured over decades. The pool wasn't just an amenity for him, it was a symbol of everything his father had taught him about boundaries, respect, and stewardship. Water, his father used to say, teaches you about people. It unites if you guide it, it erodes if you try to control it. His father had always emphasized that maintaining property with respect brought peace while neglecting it invited chaos. That philosophy had guided Ethan through his adult life, and the pool behind his house was no exception. He maintained it meticulously with the same steady hands and quiet confidence his father had shown when fixing the wooden gate at the back of the property. Ethan didn't mind the work, in fact, he found solace in it. But when Cheryl Maddox, the newly elected president of the Madison Creek Homeowners Association (HOA), arrived with her clipboard and her self-righteous sense of authority, his peaceful existence was put to the test. Cheryl, a real estate agent with a penchant for branding and control, was the kind of person who believed in turning every neighborhood into a well-manicured brochure. She walked the block with a sense of ownership, her eyes constantly scanning for any deviation from what she considered ideal. At first, her presence was benign. She waved at him while mowing the lawn, complimented his hedges, and even mentioned how inviting his pool looked from the street. But that was before she became president of the HOA, before she started rewriting the rules to fit her vision of a unified neighborhood. It wasn't long before Cheryl took issue with Ethan's pool. In one of the HOA newsletters, a glossy full-color layout about shared spaces, there was a photo of Ethan's pool with a caption that read, "Community feature maintained by local residents." Ethan was taken aback. The pool was his. It was his responsibility, built, maintained, insured, and paid for by him long before the HOA even existed. He owned it. He had the deed to prove it. He didn't care that it was visible from the sidewalk. That didn't mean it was part of the neighborhood. Cheryl, however, seemed to have her own ideas about what the pool represented. The next morning, she showed up outside his gate with a camera, snapping photos of the pool. "Nice article," Ethan said to her, trying to keep his tone even. "But that pool isn't a community feature." Cheryl smiled, her lips barely curving into a polite expression. "Oh, I'm sure it's a simple misunderstanding, Ethan," she said in her syrupy, sweet tone. "It's just so visible from the street. It feels like part of the neighborhood." Ethan shook his head. "Visibility doesn't mean ownership," he replied firmly. "That's private property, documented and insured. It's mine." Cheryl's smile tightened and she scribbled something down on her clipboard, but she didn't argue. She merely nodded, but Ethan knew this wasn't the end of it, it was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Cheryl began sending emails, each more insistent than the last. She made polite requests that the pool be made available for community events. When those didn't work, she started pushing for rules to be rewritten to include the pool as a community amenity. Ethan responded every time calmly with the same answer: "It's private property, I have the deed." He also made sure to install a new lock on the gate, one that was clearly marked "Private Pool." He even printed out a sign that read "Private Property" and hung it on the gate. His intention wasn't to be difficult, it was simply to maintain order and protect what was his. But for people like Cheryl, a lock was more than just a boundary, it was a challenge. Her emails became more forceful, the language more official, as if she were trying to exert some kind of legal pressure. Community cohesion and uniform standards became frequent buzzwords in her correspondence. She argued that the pool, visible from the street, was part of the neighborhood's aesthetic. The community needed access to it, she claimed. Ethan wasn't convinced. He had the law on his side, and he wasn't about to let a realtor with a clipboard rewrite the rules. One day, after receiving another email, Ethan did what his father had always taught him to do: he got organized. He started keeping meticulous records. Every email, every notice, every piece of correspondence was filed in an ever-growing binder. He labeled it Binder A, Evidence. Cheryl had no idea what she was starting. The first time Ethan knew things were really getting out of hand was when a group of teenagers climbed into his pool at midnight. He thought it was just some kids from the neighborhood trying to sneak a swim, but when he caught them, they muttered something about using the community pool. Ethan was calm, not angry but firm. He pointed to the sign and told them to leave. The next morning, he drained the pool, cleaned the filters, and ordered a new, more secure lock. But the problem didn't stop there. The HOA, led by Cheryl, began sending notices and fines. The fines were for unauthorized modifications, obstruction of community amenities, and violations of HOA bylaws. The first fine came in a neatly folded envelope stamped with the HOA logo. It was for $100. By the time it reached $500, Ethan stopped counting and started responding with his own paperwork, official, clear, and calm. "This is private property," he said, attaching the deed each time, making sure to point out the legal reality of the situation. Cheryl, undeterred, kept pushing, sending new fines every day, each one escalating in both the fine and the rhetoric. The neighborhood gossip machine kicked into gear too. People started avoiding Ethan, treating him as if he were the villain in this story. Rumors spread that he was hoarding water, keeping the pool locked to make people suffer, that he was non-compliant, a problem neighbor who thought he was above the rules. Some neighbors still spoke to him, including Tom, his next-door neighbor, but even Tom seemed torn. "Man, just give her the code," Tom said one evening, leaning on the fence. "It's not worth all this." Ethan shook his head. "It's not about the code, Tom, it's about control. You really think she's going to back off? Tom asked. Ethan looked at him calmly. No, I think she's going to keep pushing until someone makes her stop. It was then that Ethan realized Cheryl wasn't just fighting over a pool. She was trying to turn the entire neighborhood into her vision of perfection. She wanted to control everything. That's when Ethan decided it was time to go on the offensive. He began researching HOA bylaws and local laws, studying each one with the same precision he'd used when maintaining his property. He learned something crucial. An HOA's authority ends at the edge of private property. A deed is a boundary, not a suggestion. Cheryl's claims that his pool was part of the shared space and her insistence that it was a community amenity didn't hold water, legally speaking. Armed with this knowledge, Ethan began building his case one document at a time. He cataloged every email, every fine, every piece of correspondence. His binder A grew thicker and thicker, but Cheryl wasn't finished yet. She started taking things further, crossing the line into surveillance. One day, Ethan found a small security camera zip-tied to his fence, pointed directly at the pool. The camera wasn't his. It was another attempt at control, another sign that Cheryl was watching him, that she was trying to monitor his every move. Ethan didn't flinch. He photographed the camera, made a note in his binder, and took it down. A few days later, he saw a drone hovering over his property, its black plastic body glinting in the sun. It paused directly above his pool before flying back toward Cheryl's house. Ethan didn't react, not outwardly. He stood there, watching it disappear, and then went inside, his mind already calculating his next steps. Then came the final straw. Cheryl, using her position as HOA president, posted a slideshow on the neighborhood Facebook page titled Community Safety Concerns, Unpermitted Pool Modifications. The post included photos of his pool, his lock, and his filter system, all cropped and zoomed in to highlight supposed hazards. Cheryl's caption was full of half-truths and exaggerations. Electrical risks, unsafe modifications, obstruction of shared spaces. The comments section exploded with outrage and fear. Some neighbors defended him, but the majority sided with Cheryl, fueling the rumor mill even further. Ethan knew this was the moment he had to act. His quiet, methodical approach had served him well so far, but now it was time to take the fight to the next level. One Saturday afternoon, Ethan heard a siren. It was short, sharp, and unmistakably official. A patrol car pulled up in front of his house. At first, he thought it was a mistake. But then he saw Cheryl standing at the end of his driveway, clipboard in hand, a smug smile on her face. The officer stepped out of the car, looked at Ethan, and then at Cheryl. "We got a call about unauthorized pool use on HOA property," the officer said, his tone neutral. "This isn't HOA property," Ethan replied calmly. "It's my property, it's right there on the deed."